important details about the trip. And then at the end, if you all have questions that weren't covered, then we will have a time for you to ask those questions. Okay? So, Scotty and Phil, whenever you're ready, we're ready.
Okay, wonderful. Can you hear me okay? Okay, fabulous. Thank you for all being here. We are delighted to share with you this historic opportunity to go and to not only walk in the footsteps of Jesus, but also to sing some beautiful music with one of America's foremost composers, Dan Forrest, who will be present and accompanying the chorus, and just having this very enriching, faith-filled, and musically fulfilling tour to the Holy Land. I'm going to share my screen to go through the itinerary program, just to give you guys a good overview of how the itinerary is going to look, all the things we're going to be doing and seeing, and then I will reference the cost structure, how that works, how that's laid out, go over the inclusions, the exclusions, just to make sure you have all the information you need so you're making a very informed decision. But let me pull up this right now. Hopefully you're seeing this screen, right, with the Dome of the Rock there. Wonderful. Okay. So this tour to the Holy Land, we're going to see a lot of it. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Certainly a lot of the highlights. The dates are June 10th to the 22nd, 2024. Dr. Pearl Sheng Kwan is going to be the artistic director for this mass, what we call festival, or just mass touring chorus that's going to be formed as we arrive into Jerusalem. Dan Forrest will be the composer in residence, and he will be accompanying the ensemble on the piano. Just a little bit of information about who we are. We think it's important that you know who it is you're working with and entrusting your funds with. So we're Music Celebrations International. We have a sister company called Faith Journeys, and all they do on the Faith Journeys end is do tours for churches, congregations, to Israel a lot, but also to Italy, to the Celtic Christianity sites in Ireland and England and Scotland, some of the Reformation sites in Germany, etc. So together, we've put together this wonderful itinerary. MCI has been around since 1993, founded by John Wiscombe, who was my father and company president. So this is a family-run, organized, and owned business. There's about 35 of us here in our office in Arizona. We also have staff over in Europe and partners all over the world. You have musicians on staff, you have travel professionals, we have a dedicated air department to help with flights, and we've seen it all over the last 30 years. Now that we can include the pandemic in it, we have seen it all and are able to handle situations as they may arise. So combined, all of us, over 300 years of travel experience. So you're in good hands. Let me go through the itinerary program here. So on day one, Monday, June 10th, we're going to be departing and flying into Tel Aviv, which is the international airport in Israel. It's going to be a red-eye flight. We could be arriving in mid-morning. We could be arriving in the afternoon. It could also be an evening arrival flight. We're just not sure yet what that's going to be. We can't book out an air contract until about 10 or 11 months out from your return date. So we're thinking late July, early August is when the airlines are going to open up the air schedules for these dates, and then we'll see what's available to us, and we'll let you know the best fares with the best schedules, and then we'll make a decision at that point on which way we're going to go. But we work with all the airlines. Again, I said we have a dedicated air department to facilitate all the negotiating and the checking of all the different possible routes and fares. So we're going to look at all the different options for us to get into Tel Aviv. When you arrive in the Tel Aviv, you'll have someone at the airport with a sign with your group's name on it to be the gathering point for everyone as you get your luggage. They'll just make sure everyone is there. There are no COVID restrictions to traveling. There's no need to be tested upon arrival. There's no need to bring proof of a negative COVID test. It's wide open as it was pre-pandemic. However, with that though, there are still enhanced disinfecting protocols that restaurants and hotels and the bus companies are still using. Just a good practice, good habits with the pandemic. And so you'll still see some masks available, though masks are not required anywhere you go, but you will see the enhanced cleaning efforts going on there. So you'll meet your MCI tour manager, who will be local, tour guide with years and years of experience leading groups through the Holy Land. They're basically with us 24/7. They're staying in our hotel. They're making sure that things run smoothly, and they're the ones giving the commentary everywhere that we go. Everyone is going to get an earpiece with a little radio, and then the guide is going to wear a headset like I'm wearing now as they're giving the commentary of all the places we're going to be on. So depending on when we arrive in the Tel Aviv, we might have some time to go see Jaffa during the day, or Joppa during Old Testament times. You know, this is where the cedars of Lebanon would have been brought into port to build Solomon's temple. This is where Jonah famously left to go into the sea to escape his calling, and swallowed by the whale, the fish. So we'll spend some time in here, and then we'll check into our hotel and have dinner and overnight. All of the meals that we have, breakfast and dinner, that are included, are going to be buffet style meals. And it's all foods that we are very familiar with, but there are going to be some, great, wonderful Mediterranean type foods that maybe we don't get a lot here, like dates and figs and great yogurts and goat cheeses and things like that. But there's going to be fish and chicken and beef and lamb for the meat options. For breakfast, of course, there's going to be eggs, some sausage, a wide variety of food items. So it's not going to be too foreign. So it'll be a good eating experience for us, I should say. So we'll eat at the hotel. We also want to make sure that all the food is going to be prepared properly and safe to eat. And so all of our eating experiences for the group dinners are going to be at the restaurants within the hotel, because there's more quality control there. We're not leaving it up to the different restaurants off-site. We want to just make sure that we are safe there. Okay, beautiful pictures of Jaffa and Tel Aviv. So we'll arrive into Tel Aviv, go to Jaffa. The next day, then, we're going to make our way over to Tiberias with a couple of different stops. Here's a great map of the region we're going to be seeing and visiting. Okay, so we'll have breakfast at the hotel, our buffet breakfast, and then we're going to board our bus, which is going to be just your choir. So you're going to have your own touring experiences. All of the singing experiences are going to be all with the other choirs that are coming together as well. We'll go to Caesarea Maritima. This is King Herod's seaport town. This kind of helps to lay the background of what the Roman life and culture would have been like at Jesus's time. Wonderful archaeology there with the amphitheater, racing, and the palace, on the seashore was something to behold. And so you'll visit this site and kind of get a sense of there was this kind of clash with the Jewish culture and the Roman culture, and trying to keep things separate, and again lays the background story of Jesus and kind of the culture wars going on there with the major cultures. So Caesarea Maritima, it's a beautiful place to go see, and then we'll drive to Mount Carmel and go to the spot where Elijah called down fire with his contest with the priests of Baal. And then we'll drive to Megiddo and do a tour on the Tell there, or the hill Megiddo, which really oversaw like the big trading route of things going to and from Egypt over into Asia and Europe. So it was a prime real estate, and so you'll see we pointed out to you all the different civilizations and cities from the ground level on up, how they just kind of built onto one another. Pretty fascinating place to visit. Of course, Armageddon is right there as well. Lunch will be on OWN. The lunches we'll go to are going to be restaurants that our team has specifically visited, and they know the standards that we have. And then lunch will be, paid for on the spot. And they do take American currency for any shopping or mealtime. Then we'll proceed up north to Tiberias in the Capernaum region, Sea of Galilee. Go up to the Arbel Cliff to get a good view of the Sea of Galilee, and then have dinner in our hotel. And then we will have our first rehearsal. We're going to have several choirs coming together from across the U.S. With the music already prepared and learned. It doesn't need to be memorized, but there needs to be some great familiarity with it and have it polished quite well. And then Dr. Shankwan is going to get us all together and form a touring chorus with all the different parts and make us one ensemble. So this will be our rehearsal this evening following dinner. And the next day we're going to stay in the Sea of Galilee region up north. You see here geographically Egypt down here, and it's very mountainous right here where Jerusalem is. A lot of steep canyons, steep slopes, the foothills, and it gets pretty rough terrain. But along the coast would have been the trading route and the travel route. And then once you get up to here by Galilee, you have to, because of the mountains, the terrain, you're kind of forced to go over east to the north of Galilee and then make your way up into Syria and then over into Asia Minor. So really this Capernaum there was a lot happening here, a lot of travel, a lot of foreign visitors coming through, trade routes, etc. And Jesus spent most of his ministry up in this region. So on day 4, June 13th, we'll have breakfast at the hotel. We'll drive along the Sea of Galilee to Capernaum to visit a synagogue. We'll go over to the Church of the Loaves and Fishes and go to the Mount of Beatitudes. Here you might bring scripture. I believe your tour guide will have some scripture, and you can do some readings from the Beatitudes, Matthew 5. Do some sharing, some testimonies with this beautiful site. So it's hard to say exactly where Jesus was at any given place, where exactly he was born, where exactly is the tomb, etc. But we know that he was definitely in this region, so it's a significant spot and just a great serene, like a thin place, you might say. Following that experience, we'll have lunch on OWN, and then we'll travel up to the area of Dan, historically the tribe of Dan, for a nature walk. Beautiful springs up there, very lush, very different compared to the south of Israel for sure, with a desert, but also Jerusalem as well. Just beautiful streams, springs, trees, grasses. It's a beautiful area. Of course, this is where Jeroboam set up the golden calf, etc. On this day, we'll go over to Caesarea Philippi, and see the Temple of Pan. This is where Jesus said, Peter, you are the rock. Upon this rock I'll build the kingdom, etc. See the cave and the spring coming out over there. It's a pretty phenomenal. And they're still digging everywhere. And this is a site they're still digging at too. And then evening dinner and overnight in our Tiberias hotel. Okay. So the next day, we're going to do an excursion over to Nazareth, which is south and west. We have to transfer up to Mount Tabor. We do this via taxis because they're pretty hairpin roads and turns. But once we're up there, we get this beautiful view of all of the Galilee area. And again, we're just taking in so many sights where we can definitely see this is where Jesus, his apostles, spent time, lived, worked, walked, preached, performed miracles, etc. We'll have lunch on On, and then we'll transfer to Nazareth. We'll drive by Cana. I don't think we're going to do much stopping there, but of course Cana was the site of the wedding where Jesus turned water to wine. And then we'll see Mount Tabor and the Carmel Hills in the distance. Nazareth Spring, the Church of the Annunciation we'll visit, and then we'll have our first performance of the tour in Nazareth. The venue has not yet been locked down. We want to first see how large this touring chorus is going to be, but there are some good possibilities there in Nazareth. Following the performance, we'll have evening dinner back at the hotel and overnight. I should say too, the hotels are going to be 3 and 4 star equivalent. They're going to be double occupancy, so 2 per room is pretty standard. There would be some limited availability for a triple room configuration for those bringing families and don't want to have someone off, by their lonesome in one room or pay for that single supplement to room by themselves. But they're good. They're good properties. They're clean, well maintained. Okay. The next day, we're making our way from the Galilee area down into Jerusalem via the Jezreel Valley and Jericho. Okay. So we'll first load our buses and then go over to Bet Shean, which is one of the cities or towns that would have made the Decapolis, the 10 cities in the Galilee region where Jesus would have visited and taught, etc. And so we'll see the ancient Roman ruins, the Byzantine ruins, etc. Have lunch, and then we'll drive then south through the Jezreel Valley. We'll stop at Ein Harod. We can go see the spring and the water. This is where Gideon famously thinned out his ranks to get the army that the Lord wanted him to have in his battle. And so you can also dip your hand in the water and drink it as well. And then we're going to transfer into Herod's Valley and make our way to Jericho on the West Bank. Jericho is part of Palestine, West Bank, and so we will have a local Palestinian guide that will tell us and give us the background and tour of Jericho, which is famously considered the oldest city in the world. And then we get into Jerusalem that night, have dinner at our hotel, and overnight. The next day, we do the 20-25 minute drive from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. It's about 5 or 6 miles away. There are some security checkpoints because, again, it's on the West Bank. Okay, so we'll drive to Bethlehem. We'll pass by Rachel's tomb. On the outskirts of the city, we'll stop for a hilltop view of Bethlehem and then go visit the shepherd's fields. And our guide will explain the culture there with shepherding. We'll have lunch on On. We'll walk through the old town, and we'll see the Church of the Nativity, which is again one of the spots where they say this is the exact spot where Jesus was born. We'll also go and see a cave, St. Jerome, where that could have also been the place where everything happened. We'll perform in Bethlehem, and then we will return to Jerusalem for dinner and overnight. Okay? And then while we're in Jerusalem, the next day, we're going to have breakfast at the hotel. We're going to bus up to the Mount of Olives. It's a great view. You see that picture on the bottom right? That's kind of from that vantage point. It's a great spot for the whole group of us, all the different choirs, to kind of bunch together and get a great group photo with the old town in the background and the Dome of the Rock. So we'll have that experience and then make our way down the Palm Sunday Road, which those of you that have done this, you know it's actually a pretty steep road. And so there's handrails to hold on to as you walk down. There's a couple of different stops that we'll make as we go down. So, where Jesus wept, etc., looking at Jerusalem, oh Jerusalem, Jerusalem, etc. We'll go down to the Garden of Gethsemane and spend some time there. We'll also, on this day, go and tour the city of David, one of the older parts of the city of Jerusalem. It's basically at the point. And there's a little video presentation of the city of David talking about the history. And then in that region, we can descend for those that want to, can walk through Hezekiah's tunnel, which was a tunnel built to bring water into the city of David. And it's wet, so I think you get through it, and I think there's water up to your knees. Might be, maybe, well, I guess it depends on how tall you are, but 6-foot-ish person will have water up to their knees, maybe a little bit higher. Something where you'll want to bring some water shoes or some water sandals, and there is a shop up top where you can purchase those items as well. But without people in the way, it's about a 20-minute walk. If there happens to be other groups in that tunnel, it's a 40-minute walk. But it's a pretty cool experience. And because it's going to be in June, it'll be a little toasty and warm. It'll be nice, cool water and refreshing. After that experience, we go back to our hotel and then have dinner and overnight. The hotel in Jerusalem is going to be within walking distance of the Old Town. There's several gates to get into Old Town, and so it's conveniently located for us to explore in the evening as well on our own. And then from Jerusalem the next day, we're going to go to the Rift Valley. So lowest point on earth, the Dead Sea and the Qumran, the cave where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, and Masada. So we'll make our way down through Bethany. We'll see the site associated with Martha, Mary, Lazarus. See a home as well as a tomb, which very well could have been the tomb where Jesus called forth Lazarus. We'll continue on the road and go to Qumran and see where the caves, in which the caves were discovered, the Dead Sea Scrolls. You see a picture of that in the top left. And then we'll continue to Masada, the last stronghold of the Jewish population as the Romans were really putting their squeeze on the community and trying to break their back. And that picture's on the bottom right. And that's a pretty interesting historical visit. It's a highlight for a lot of people. It's also going to be very warm up there. As you can see, there really isn't any tree covering at all. There are some shaded areas where you can sit and have things explained to you, but on this day I say, please bring a nice big hat or even an umbrella to keep the sun off your face and shoulders and neck. And then following that visit, we'll go to the Dead Sea. And those that want to can take their dip in the Dead Sea. And it's going to be warm. It's quite an experience to float on the sea. and there's probably going to be some rich, like mineral-rich mud baths that you can do as well. And they'll tell you, if you do that for 15 minutes, you're taking 2 years off of your life, 2 years younger because of all the nutrients in the mud there. There are showers then following the floating and the mud, and then you can change back into your clothes and get back onto the bus. And then we'll stop on the way back into Jerusalem at Ein Gedi, which is a waterfall site. This is, I believe, where David and Saul would have had a meeting here, I think, in the Old Testament. So flora, fauna, there's some indigenous, like deer, goat type creatures. I'm not sure exactly what they would be called, but like an antelope. And then we'll return to Jerusalem for dinner and overnight. On day 10, June 19th, breakfast at the hotel, and then we're going to spend some time in Old Town Jerusalem. So we'll transfer to the Dung Gate and then make our walk through the Old Town, the winding roads, the narrow roads, and smell all the spices and see all the stalls and everyone's selling everything, which will be very tempting to stop, but we want to just keep going over to the Western Wall, one of Judaism's most holiest sites. You can go up to the wall. You can say a prayer there. You can write a prayer on a piece of paper and stick it in the cracks in the mortar between the stones. Men on the left, women on the right. You'll see that as you get there. It's a pretty moving experience when you think about how many generations of Jews have been coming there as a pilgrimage site, and just the hope within them for the coming of their Messiah. And then following that, we'll walk through and do the Via Dolorosa, and not stop at all the stations of the cross, but stop at some of the significant ones that make sense, some churches, some corners, and the guide will tell you, according to tradition, what would have happened, here, someone assisting Jesus carrying his cross, is someone giving him water here, etc. Some things found in the Bible and some things more tradition. Following that, we will spend some time in the Arab quarter, Armenian quarter, and we will go to the Garden Tomb, which is a beautiful experience, and then we'll have a performance either on this day or the following day, which is more free. But while we're at the Garden Tomb, the Voices of Faith chorus first happened this past October. We want to do this much earlier, but at the Garden Tomb, the touring chorus they just kept singing as we were in line going down to the tomb, and it was really a moving spiritual experience, especially for those that may have just lost someone who might be on their mind. It really is a moving experience. So following that, we'll either perform on this day in Jerusalem and then return to the hotel, or we'll just go to the hotel, have some free time, and then perform the next day. So on June 20th, day 11, we want to have just a free day. That was the feedback that we got from those that traveled this past October, that they wish there was just more time to explore on their own, to have that moment by themselves, and of course to shop for and find the perfect olive wood carved nativity cross, etc. So time to go and do this in Jerusalem. The bus and driver will be at the group's disposal on this day, and so if they wanted to go out as a group somewhere, like the Valley of Elat, to go see where David slew Goliath, not too far of a drive, but we could include those experiences on this day that we want to, or again, just make it a free day for those to kind of have their own personal reflection, or find those trinkets or souvenirs that they've wanted to get. Dinner at the hotel this night, or again, if the performance doesn't happen on the 19th, it'll happen on this day. which might be the case because that previous day is pretty packed, and it'd be nice to have a day of rest before we have our final performance. Day 12, we check out of our hotel after breakfast. We're going to go to a couple of museums here. So the scale model of the city of Jerusalem in Jesus' time. So here we'll have the guide point out all the things that we saw the previous days, so we can, see it from a bird's eye view. And then we'll also go see the Shrine of the Book, where the Dead Sea Scrolls are displayed. We'll also go to the Yad Vashem Museum, which is the Memorial Museum for the Holocaust, which is a moving experience. We're going to make our way to Tel Aviv because this night we're going to be flying home. On the way, we'll go through Emmaus, which is important in the New Testament. And then we transfer to Tel Aviv for a farewell dinner. And then it's going to be a red-eye flight home. We want to get to the airport at least 3, maybe 4 hours before we head home, because they really have enhanced security. For those that have been there, you'll recall that a lot of questioning of the tour leaders, looking through the itinerary, making sure everyone is who they say they are, etc. And then they allow us to check in and board our flights and come home. And then we'll be arriving home on Saturday, June 22nd. Okay, that is the program, itinerary program. Now I want to pull up another document which goes through the pricing structure. I don't know if this has been shared with everyone yet. If not, we can make this available to everyone. So here is the 11 nights, 13-day tour. You see in this pricing grid here, this includes an estimate of round-trip air from Cincinnati, Ohio. This top row, or the column headings, would indicate the number of paying travelers per, just as we go. You see a sliding scale here with the tour. The closer we get to filling up a bus, which is about 50 seats, the better the price point is per person. And this top row here would be the price that includes our airfare estimate. Inevitably, someone asks, but I have all these, credit card points or airline miles, and I can do my own air. What's the price? That would be this price down here, the land package. So with our airfare estimate, you're looking at 4,800-ish with the full bus, and then maybe closer to 5,100 if we're in that 30-ish range. We can definitely go lower to 20 people. You just see the trend there that the price does go up, because there are just some fixed costs that are spread amongst everyone, like the cost of the bus, the driver, your tour guide, and then the concert, costs, overhead. That's why there's kind of a sliding scale there. The price is based on double occupancy. All the rooms have private facilities. The buses are modern. They're very much like the long-distance motor coaches we have here, working AC. You'll have wonderful drivers. Our partner office in Israel is actually Palestinian Christian, and so they have no issues going, into the West Bank regions, like Jericho and Bethlehem. In fact, they're one of the oldest tour companies in Israel, so well respected. They own buses, they own hotels. You're going to be in very good hands with the team on the ground there in Israel. As we scroll down, what is included in this tour? Airline transportation, mention that. Local coach transportation that's with you the whole time. So you'll have the same bus and driver for the duration of your tour. No one's getting on your bus. That's not part of your tour. We're not doing any public transportation unless you would do that on your own in the evenings. And there's taxis and things. But again, the the hotel in Jerusalem, which is going to be the biggest city where you're going to be staying, it's going to be within walking distance of the old town. So if you wanted to go into the old town and walk around and just take in the sights, reflection, etc., you can do that walking, no problem. All the performance arrangements, accommodations are included. Double occupancy, like I said. Meals, 2 meals per day, breakfast and dinner, buffet style. Entrance fees, so everything on the itinerary is included. You're not going to be asked to pay anything while you're on the spot, unless it's going to be for lunches. And then souvenirs. Tour management, you'll have one full-time multilingual tour manager with you for the duration of your tour that will just take very good care of you. And they are tapped into everything. They know all that's going on. So if there's a demonstration somewhere, if there's some heightened tension somewhere, they know what to avoid, and you'll be none the wiser of anything that may have happened that day until you read about it 2 days later. They're just very much in the know. All of the tips are included to your tour manager, your driver, your restaurant, and hotel personnel. Every traveler is going to get a flight bag that's like a satchel, which is great for your folder and music. Like I said before, we want everyone to come prepared, knowing the music, not memorized. So you definitely want you to bring black folders with the music in them, and those little flight bags are great. A couple of luggage tags to help you identify your bags coming off of the luggage carousel, and then a souvenir t-shirt, and maybe we can all agree to wear it on one day in the tour, maybe for our group photo day. We'll see. Some travel notes we'll send to everybody. There's some liability insurance. There's some travel insurance. That's kind of top of mind for a lot of people right now. So what happens if there's another thing like COVID, or there's an act of terrorism, or it's just things are heightened? So we have some coverage there for everybody traveling on the tour. You see these brief summary of coverage here. Travel accident, medical expenses, trip cancellation, interruption, delay. There is also coverage that you can purchase that would have greater amounts than these, as well as a cancel for any reason coverage. Right now, travel companies are not insuring, covering anything like an act of war or a pandemic, but this cancel for any reason coverage will mitigate a lot of that risk. If the tour had to be canceled, we, MCI, would do all we can to get money back from vendors and to make you as whole as we can. That's our commitment, and that's what we did in 2020. We had groups on the road, going to the airport, ready to go to Ireland, and then their university called to say, shut it down, we can't go anymore because of this thing that's happening. Even in those cases, we got 70% back to our clients. If we had more time to negotiate, it was closer to 85, 90% that we got back for our clients. I don't know if entities will be as generous as they were maybe a second time around, because they realized that they needed to hang on to cash to keep their lights on. So let's just say, for example, just for round numbers, the tour is $5,000, and something happens where the whole tour had to be just shut down for whatever reason. That's maybe not be a covered reason by the insurance. There definitely are covered reasons to cancel, right? I'm just talking about those like an act of war or a pandemic. Let's say we got back to you $4,000 of the $5,000, so about 80%. With this cancel for any reason coverage, if you purchase this additional coverage, you can then make a claim to get 75% of that $1,000 we could not get back for you. And you'll get that amount back making that claim. So it doesn't make you 100% whole, but it sure mitigates a lot of that risk. Now, if you were to cancel because a loss of job or a sickness, an illness, lose a house, these are all covered reasons where you can cancel, and the travel insurance company will restore you fully to make you whole. But just top of mind with pandemic and just unrest, I wanted to address that cancel for any reason coverage to Israel. And we have up until about 60 days prior to departure to make that determination if you want to purchase that coverage. We need to have that premium payment in-house 60 days or earlier before you travel. Okay, so cost exclusions. I talked about lunches already. Disregard this because we do have the tips included. Concert programs if needed. Don't worry about that. We have that covered. If you have a U.S. passport, that is your visa to get in. You need nothing additional. If you have a passport from a different country of origin, you want to just go online to see if a visa is required for you to get into Israel. We have not included transportation to the Cincinnati airport, drinks at dinners beyond table water, which, you know, some people drink it. I would rather just get a bottled water. And also your bus drivers will have cold water on the bus, and you can, I think, pay them $1 for a bottle of water every time you need one. So they're pretty well stocked there. Lunches not included. Airline luggage fees, if applicable. So because it's an international flight, you get one checked bag free of charge, or it's included in the cost of your ticket. So, and that's what we want to kind of limit the baggage to one large checked bag and then maybe a personal item, depending on how big the group's going to be. If we have a full bus, it's hard to fit one large checked bag and then a roller bag as well. It's a carry-on for everybody on the bus because it's just hard to fit everything underneath the bay there. So one large checked bag, 50 pounds will be the max, and then a personal item. And with how the airports have been this past summer, it's always good to have a couple extra pairs of or changes of clothing in your personal item just in case that bag doesn't quite make it. So I think things are a lot better now, but only needs to happen once before you realize you want to make sure you have some extra clothing there. So that's the rundown of the tour, and I would love to open it up to any questions you might have.
Okay, Scotty,
Perfect.
can he hear?
Check. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. You may have said this, did you cover the cost of the additional, the liability policy, I guess?
Oh, the cost of the additional, what was that?
The cost of the insurance policy that would cover in case of, you know, a reason that we couldn't go.
I didn't have that pulled up. What Sean can do is he can email frequently asked questions about that insurance coverage. We have a little 5-page document there, Q&A, and on that we'll have the grid of what that premium amount would be, and it explains how to find that premium amount. So we can send that over to Beth, and she can send it to all of you guys. If you have a hard time sleeping at night, you can also read that to help you get some shut-eye.
Okay, and then 2 other questions, and it's kind of the same question, but one is if you have an individual who has moderate to limited mobility, what is that, is it something they could do? And then secondarily, if someone is handicapped in a wheelchair, is there any option for them?
Yeah, so this past October, there were a couple of people that had some mobility issues. Nobody in a wheelchair, but definitely with canes, and they actually were able to get everywhere that they wanted to. So there are definitely some tours where we might, with the tour manager, say, "Hey, this one's going to be pretty aggressive," like walking up to the waterfall area where David and Saul met. Like that's just maybe a bit too rough. Masada should be okay because there's a tram that gets us up. We're not walking up any paths to get there. So for sure, there are still we can still get around. It just depends on what the mobility is. There aren't a lot of great, well, it's all like cobblestone stuff right in the old town of Jerusalem. So a wheelchair is hard, though it can be done. We didn't have one on this past trip to October. And then for the singing as well during the concerts, if they needed to sit for the performances, they could do that as well if they were a singing participant. There's just going to be some days where they just might not feel it because of the heat. And that's going to be fine. They can wait on the bus with the AC running, or sit at a restaurant or a cafe and grab some snacks, some food, waiting for the tour to end. The tours that we do are not long, so we're not doing anything on site that's going to be take half the day. So they're pretty quick visits. So they're not going to be just sitting for too long waiting for the group. If they need a wheelchair, we can look at that, and I can talk to my colleagues in Israel to see what that would look like then, and give you some ideas of maybe what activities would be not suitable for that. But there are wheelchairs available. There are a lot of church groups that go to Israel. We have one in Florida going, and I was kind of shocked because there was quite a few people born in the late 30s, and I'm like, oi. So they're going to have some mobility issues as well in that group. But Israel is used to that because so many older church members want to get there. It's a bucket list destination.
Is there a special electrical adapter that has to be purchased or brought if someone is bringing laptops or phones?
There is, and we'll send you what that is. I think on Walmart you can get the whole bundle of like everything, Europe and Israel, for like $20-$30 right now. But there are some adapters that you will want to use laptops, to charge your phones, etc. Wi-Fi should be available at the hotels. Some of the buses even have those, but it's like one of those things where it's like if everyone's trying to get on Wi-Fi, it just goes very slow on the buses. But there'll be chances to load up whatever you want, Instagram, Facebook, share with friends back at the hotel each night.
What's the possibility, like on day 11, our day of leisure, for us to go to the River Jordan and do baptism? How far away is that, and is it in a different country? Will we have to go through special security, etc.?
That can be done. It wasn't on the itinerary specifically mentioned, but that would be done up in the Galilee region where the water is much cleaner, and probably actually the more traditional site where Jesus would have been baptized. So that can be included in your tour, and if you have a pastor coming along with you, or one authorized to baptize, that could definitely be arranged for you guys when you're up there.
Thank you.
I know you had already mentioned about food. My son has some allergies, so how do you all handle food allergies or special diet?
So we'll ask you, the group, to give us a spreadsheet of what the allergies are per person, and we will send those ahead of time to our team in Israel, and they will get with the hotels for breakfast and dinner to see what accommodations can be met, or to let us know, okay, these food items were prepared with this oil or whatever, and so these wouldn't be good. But there's enough variety there in those buffet breakfasts and dinners that we should be okay. It just depends on what the allergies are, and we'll get those from you ahead of time, and then we will give you some assurances or the feedback from our staff on the ground of what can be accommodated. I mean, most everything is accommodated all over the world now. But that's kind of just how we work. You'll let us know what the specific meal requests are, and then we'll work with the restaurants at the hotels to make all the proper accommodations.
I think you mentioned it maybe when you were speaking about the restaurants and accepting U.S. currency or whatever, would there be a point that we would need a different currency? How would we go about doing that, or knowing where we would need it?
I've been to Israel, and I've never had them insist on me using local currency. I think they prefer the U.S. dollar, and that's even with all the stalls and stands in the old town, all the spices and everything. So I haven't had an issue with that at all. If it changes for some reason, we'll for sure let you guys know beforehand. And if that's the case, you could get that currency here at your local bank before you travel, or you can pull some out with an ATM card at the debit machine at the airport, which kind of has been the better exchange rate, fewer fees taken out. If you do it that way, if you brought American currency and then went to a currency exchange desk, they'll take, I think, a greater percentage. It's worse for you guys to do it that way. But we should be good with American currency. If that were to change, we'll let you know.
One last thing about healthcare. If you have an individual who needs healthcare when they're there, that's maybe an emergency, they can't wait till they get back, how do you all handle that?
So with the travel insurance that we have included, that should be used as your primary insurance when you're traveling. And so there's an international number that you can call through this TripMate, which is the insurance company that we've kind of partnered with and have for the last 20-ish years. They're really great, but there's some high amounts there. The healthcare system in Israel is very good. They're kind of leading edge on, laboratories and health and medicine over there. So I'm not concerned about any services that you might need, the quality of it. And then you would just use the TripMate insurance to make those coverages. It might be a reimbursable thing where you might need to pay for it, and then TripMate will reimburse you for those expenses up to whatever amounts you have. Just with a standard travel insurance, I think it was $1,000 medical, but if you do the premium upgraded, I think it's maybe $10,000 medical if you need it. It's also socialized medicine, so it's also priced differently over there.
Luke, we have a couple of families that have very young infants, and they had asked about pricing for infants. I'm assuming if it's a baby, they wouldn't pay the tour price. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. And I think under 2, still, there isn't a requirement for, getting a seat for that child or toddler. I've heard some whisperings that airlines are trying to do away with that because of just, I think, some really bad turbulence episodes that have been happening in some parts of the world that have made the news, where they might want to have like a car seat strapped down in a seat at the airline. I don't know where that's going to go or if that's even going to go anywhere, but yeah, a toddler, child, infant wouldn't really pay anything because they're not going to be eating their own meal, and they're going to be in the same room with the parents. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that we have, Luke. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. And just note too, and I'm sure you see this all the time, there definitely are just some tensions and flare-ups just recently even, but that's also has to do with Ramadan. As we get near the end of Ramadan, that just seems to be a normal thing in Jerusalem and Israel. But just know that it's probably one of the most secure countries in terms of their defense and just military presence everywhere. So you do feel very safe while you're there. And even, you see those with the military presence, in their uniforms, carrying weapons. But then you also get the sense that there's like every third person is like a plainclothes security person. So you just feel very safe there. I walked in the Muslim quarter I kind of got lost in October walking in the old town and was just wandering around the Muslim quarter. And it was just wonderful. Nice people and beautiful area, wonderful smells, people cooking and everything. But I had no incidents being by myself, having that experience. So it's still, very safe in that regard. And again, with our boots on the ground, so to speak, we can do any kind of a call with our colleagues over there. They can give kind of up to date, by the minute updates on what's happening there. So to put things in greater context for us, because the media tends to blow things up quite a bit, sensationalize everything. That's how they get people to view things and click on things. But we've been assured that there are more people traveling to Israel than they have ever experienced in their history of 50 years of doing tours. So there's a lot of interest to get there, and it's just growing and growing. So I think we're in a good spot. We already have some hotels confirmed, thankfully. So we've got space for us when we get there. We owe you some details on the travel insurance. We can also send you what the single supplement price is for anyone that wants to have their own room, just so you can make that call. But then we're always here to take any questions or address anything. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Okay, thank you so much, Luke. We appreciated you.
Our pleasure. You guys have a great night. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Inside says payment schedule. The $1,500 group deposit doesn't really apply to you as an individual. That's something that I take care of. But your first payment is $200, and that will be due August 1st. That's the latest possible date. Earlier is better. So whenever you're ready, you can bring me $200 cash or check, and I will keep it safe, and we'll do the group payment. So if no one else has any other questions, the next part of the meeting is going to be about some potential fundraisers that I have. If you are not interested in fundraising, and that's okay if you're not, some people will be able to just write a check and they won't want to mess with any fundraising, and that's totally fine, I understand. But if you are interested in any fundraising things to kind of supplement the cost of your trip, I've got a couple of things that I can share with you. But if not, I'm going to give you guys a second to end this portion of the meeting. If you don't care to grab those, catalogs in the back. Okay, Scotty, will you switch to the t-shirt slide? Okay, so first of all, the t-shirt, yeah. This is our new t-shirt design. We make $10 per t-shirt, and I think that QR code works. Did you try it? Okay, so if you have a phone, you can just hold your phone up and scan that QR code. I want to thank Jacob West for the quote on this. He texted me one night and said, let's do a shirt that just says, "Who are you, great mountain?" And if you don't know where that's from, during the revival, the mass choir sang a song called Never Lost, and it talks about, in the bridge of the song, "Who are you, great mountain, that you should not bow low?" And it's a really great message, just spiritually, but also that $5,000 really feels like a great mountain. So if we sell these t-shirts, you can say, hey, this $10 is going to go toward my trip, so that will help you achieve that big thing that you got to do. The next fundraiser is Rada Knives. How many of you guys have these in your house? I do, and I love them. They're great products. And they make more than just knives. There's also the vegetable peeler that's really awesome, and lots of other cutlery as well. Now, traditionally with RADA, you sell this with a catalog. And, you just say to your family and friends, hey, we're selling cutlery to raise money to go to the Holy Land. Would you like to look through the catalog? And whatever they want, you just take your pencil and you write it down. You can do that. They would not have to pay tax that way. And the reason for that is when I place that group order, the church is tax exempt. If they place an order online, they will pay tax because as an individual, you're not tax exempt. So that is one kind of a bonus for somebody that might want to purchase a little bit more. Yeah, so some of our fundraisers, like the car wash events, those are going to be kind of group fundraisers. Once we get an idea of who exactly is going, the people that work those fundraisers, we can evenly distribute the proceeds of those fundraisers among the people who work the fundraiser. With these individual ones, exactly what you put into it is what you get back from it. So you go out there and you hustle a lot of RADA, then that goes directly to your trip. So that's kind of the incentive with this. And that code, if you want to scan this QR code, that is going to allow us to track your sales. And I can directly deduct whatever your profits are from your trip. So if you think that you will only be selling by catalog, you probably don't need to fool with that. But if you think that you will use your social media to put it out there, hey, I'm selling RADA, go ahead and do this, because that will help us keep it all in one place, who has sold what. And those are we have lots of things in the works, but I don't want to overwhelm you. So those are the things that we're focused on right now. We're going to run RADA through the month of May. We have the car wash that's coming up at the end of May, and we definitely will need help with that. So if any of these events pop up on the screen on Sunday morning and you think, hey, I'm available that date, I'd love to help with that fundraiser, you just come tell me and I'll put you on the schedule to help so that you can benefit from the proceeds of that event. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll let you do that. Is that okay? Yeah.
Have we got like a...
Yes.
let me pull up.
Heather asked if I could put this in the Dorothy link. I'll put it in the, should I put it maybe in the comments of this live stream? Or is there a better place? Okay. Put it in the private group. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So if you're interested in the RADA, selling the RADA, I will put it. I will figure it out. You can message me if you're not here and you're online listening to this, and I'll help you get started with RADA. But also, it's on the inside of your catalog, so you can have it there as well. All right, so this is my sister Holly, and she is going to talk about some options. Like I said, if you want to write a check for that amount, and you can write a check for that amount, that is great, but that is not your only option to pay for this trip. So she's extremely detail-oriented, and she sat down and messed with the numbers. So I'm going to let her talk about a couple of things that you could do to pay for your trip.
Okay, Scotty, I sent that to you. I don't know if it won't log in. Okay. Well, I've got this document if you want it. But essentially what we wanted to do was to create 3 different models for payment. So if you had the funds available and you didn't want to fool with fundraising, that you could just simply write a check. That would still be broken down in payments for you, so you could pay that over time. And that self-pay option minus your $200, you basically will break that $4,900 down over 4 payments, okay? And those would be based on how many people are going. As you know, he mentioned that the price changes. So essentially, you'd be paying 15% payment for the first payment, then you would pay a 20% payment, a 25%, and then the final balance. So it kind of puts a little bit more on the back end of your payments. The second option is a hybrid pay option. And what we had hoped when we first talked about the payment options was that, our goal, we wanted to set ourselves a goal. Obviously, that can change based on how much money we raise as a choir group, and then how much money each individual person raises. And it also depends on how many people are going, so that we know how to distribute the funds in each individual fundraiser to make it fair. But if we just estimated that, we could potentially fund half of the cost of the trip based on our fundraisers over the course of the next 12 months, essentially what that does is it means you would pay half price. And breaking that down, again, you would pay, you could keep track of your individual fundraisers that you're doing, and then you would set aside the group fundraisers. So essentially you have money coming from two different pots, okay? So breaking down half of the cost, you basically are going to self-pay that $2,450, and then you would hope that we could garner over the course of 12 months $2,450 on your behalf, meaning maybe you would raise half of that on your individuals. And this gives you guidance and goals. If I don't say to myself, I need to raise $1,000 in 1 month, I'm probably not going to do it. So this is just helping guide you to say, I need to focus on, I need to push harder to get a little bit more money this month. So based on that, and again, those numbers are based on how many people are going, and how many people actually are participating in our group fundraisers. The last option, which is the fully fundraised option. That means I don't have any money and I need to work my way there. And a lot of people may do this, and I'll just tell you, I might be one of those. So essentially, obviously, your $200, you have a little bit of time to do that, but you can certainly do that with one of these fundraisers right off the get-go to raise your money. But essentially, you're going to take that $4,900 and you're going to try to self-fundraise. Now, again, you can still pull from those group fundraisers that we do as a collective, and a portion of that will be matched just like everybody else's. But you're still going to have on the other end of that a significant portion. So you're essentially funding about 75% of your trip on your self-individual fundraisers. And for people who are good sellers, who don't mind to get out and ask, that might be easy for you. And so we wanted to just say, there's a way you can go, even if you don't have the funds in the bank. And you can get there. It's just going to take a little bit of work to get there. And I think that anybody would be able to do it. I know that we've got lots of different fundraisers coming up, and we didn't want to overwhelm everybody with how many fundraisers we have coming up, but there will be potential for you, an opportunity for you every single month to make the goals that's on this sheet. I know there's lots of excitement. I don't know if Beth's told it, but there's so many churches that have reached out to her already and said, can we go with you? And, obviously she said, hey, we want to get our group there first. So with all that said, the community knows that we're going, and they'll know that people are needing funding. There will be opportunities for you to make a way. And so if there's any questions, I'll be, and Beth will try to get this out to you. Again, this is just kind of a model. Those numbers may fluctuate based on how many go and that sort of thing. But it'll at least give you guidance to say, hey, I've got to make $551.25 this month or within the next 3 months in that first quarter. So it'll give you goals. Any questions? Okay, Beth.
All right, guys. Well, unless you have something else, you are dismissed. Thank you for coming out. Remember, if you go home and talk about it with your family and you decide that you want to go on this trip with us, I have to have that money by August, what was it, 1st? That first $200 payment, yeah, well, August 1st. If you have it sooner and you want to go ahead and secure your spot before it fills up, then you can absolutely do that. Jessica?
I'm gonna be this person. What happens if we have more than 50 people that want to go? Like, do we cut off?
I've thought about that. Yeah, I mean, the way I understand it is a bus holds 47. So that pricing locks down at 47. If we had more than that and it was like 20 more than that, I think there could be technically another bus, but you know, I think what we're just yeah, right, exactly. So I think the way we'll have to do it is we'll just see, like, we'll have those 47 or whatever he said spots, and the money that I get first maybe locks in your spots. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions
Well, I think we would just solicit enough churches to say, if there's
to fill it out.
that we would fill another bus. So we would move to that next 47.
Yeah.
Just a lot, I mean, it's gonna lock in the price for that $50.99 at their minimum, what they said. At 47, our price goes down. So I would think if you had another 30 that you could get, you wouldn't necessarily have to fill a bus, but I would think that they would honor that price, I would assume. Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's very possible because there's a lot of interest even outside the church that have reached out. We would love to take multiple churches with us. It'd be wonderful. So hopefully so.
Yeah. Good questions. Yeah.
Well, you got to take into consideration how many seats you got on the plane.
Yeah. That's also a good point.
You know, you don't know how many other people's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically those, when we went to Paris, it was like 200 and some people on that plane. And I would assume it would be a larger plane. I'm not sure, but if they want to send us on a private jet, we'd be okay with that too.
Yeah.
And then just for clarification purposes, if other churches went, they would not take part in our fundraising money. We would not split our fundraising dollars with them. They would get those stuff up.
Yeah.
Scotty's gonna bring down the boom. They'll have to go through Scotty. Are we still on? I want to cut the line.
Scotty, my cousin Scott's the same way.
He'll be managing our budget.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Oh, one more question.
So, this may be a stupid question, but he said 2 per room, so is that 2 couples per room? Or just
Double occupancy, I think, means 2 beds. There's usually like a type of what?
Yeah.
2 people?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
He said they would make exceptions like if it was family.
Okay.
So it's like, or having
Right. Okay. So I'll get some clarification on the occupancy, but
He said if we wanted to have an individual room that they could accommodate that, it would just be an extra expense.
I'm getting an individual room.
I'm staying out of this.